My name is Charlotte Major. I'd like to share my COVID experience with you. Yes, so about 3 weeks back, this is early into November, I was working, and at my place of work, we were having a small briefing about in the evening, which was about 4:30. I normally leave office 5, so the briefing was going to take 30 minutes. And my head of department called me to go and sit in for the meeting. While I was there, we were with a couple of people who we parted ways, I think 30 to 45 minutes after that. So immediately after the meeting, I quickly dashed out of the boardroom, went, picked my bag, and left because I was running an errand in the CBD. So when I got there, I did my errand the next day, went to work. Monday when I came into the office, one of the people who we were with in the boardroom called me and told me, hey, for how long were you with those people in the boardroom? So I said about 30 to 45 minutes. So they actually told me, I hope you were not in contact with person X for too long. And I said, I wouldn't be too sure. I wouldn't remember. But let's just say at some point you were in contact. So he said, yeah. So the person has tested positive for COVID because during the weekend they really had loud symptoms. So quickly I started to think back if there were any points where we were in contact, but I couldn't remember of any, so I just brushed it off. That morning, I had started to show flu symptoms, but I normally have a sinus problem, so I obviously knew it was the sinus issue. But towards the evening, which is Monday evening, I now had a proper flu where I was having a running nose, I was feeling feverish, I was feeling tired, and I had a headache. But once again, I just knew this is a flu because earlier into November, there were so many flu cases. Yeah. So then that same evening, my boss calls me and says, hey, Charlotte, I understand you have a flu. So I tell her yes. So she tells me, just keep tabs on yourself. Let me know what happens tonight and how you sleep tonight. So I actually still brush it off because in my head I know it's just a flu. The fact that I was in contact with someone would not 100 mean I would be a positive case. So I go home, but now as time goes by, the symptoms are now weighing me down. I'm having a headache, I'm having a running nose, I'm feeling slightly feverish, but I'm thinking probably it's the flu. So that night I come back home and it gets so bad because I start feeling like my throat is drying up. I could barely sleep that night. Compared to the normal flu, I could barely sleep this night because it was so heavy. The running nose was so bad. I was tearing, the headache. I would feel feverish, but it was not to the extreme. So at some point I slept, but it was still very uncomfortable. So in the morning when I wake up, I normally have perfume that is normally very strong. So I try spraying it on myself and I cannot feel it. I try steam myself with the vapor balm and I still cannot smell it. And I think after that, I now became very worried. So I went to work and told my boss, you know what, I actually lost my sense of smell. So she told me, just keep tabs on yourself. We're waiting for results for someone else who you are in contact with still at the ballroom and see whether this could be a possibility or not. So while we are waiting, I think in less than an hour, she calls me back and says, hey, everyone in the boardroom has tested positive. You go get tested. So I rush to hospital. I go to Nairobi West Hospital. I do my test. And they actually tell me it will be ready in 24 hours. So I go back home in isolation. I wait for my test, and in less than 24 hours, my results were out. And yes, I had tested positive. So at this while, Ministry of Health contacts me to tell me what I should do, how I should ensure I'm isolated, to take note of the symptoms I'm feeling. The hospital is also in contact with me. Yes, and I was in isolation for 10 to 14 days. I think after that it kept getting better. There are days it would get worse because my chest would get very congested. Sometimes I'd have a headache on and off. Sometimes I'd feel feverish on and off. But it was not that bad. Yeah. I would get tired. Sometimes I'd run out of breath. But these are things I would actually notice on and off. My sense of smell would go and come back sometimes, but I was able to cope with it. I did my hot water, lemon, ginger, turmeric every day. I think almost 3 times a day, if not 4. I did my steaming about 3 times a day. Anytime I'd feel like I'm having a running nose, I'm getting congested, my chest is getting heavy, I'd steam. I did a lot of fluids. It didn't matter what, tea, juice, water, the ginger, lemon cocktail, milk. It just did not matter anything. It just had to be a fluid. In the evenings, especially in the first week of isolation, I would try and do very light exercises just to open up my lungs. Say something like I'd skip. I'd just try jog on the spot, jump, do sit-ups, do press-ups, just to ensure my chest does not get the chance to get congested and that my body does not also feel tired. What else did I do? I had a lot of rest. I had a lot of fruits, especially citrus fruits, oranges, pineapples, and a lot of vitamin C and zinc. So for my zinc, I'd do my spinaches, my Kenyan vegetables. That is the managos, the tereres. I still ate other vegetables as well, say cabbage. I did my lentils. I just ensured I was on a good diet. Yes. And I went for my test after my 14 days of isolation and I tested negative. Yes. And now I'm here. Okay, while also in isolation, they give you medication based on how you're feeling. Like for my headaches, I got paracetamol. For my cough, I also really had a fairly bad cough. I got a cough syrup. For my zinc supplements, for my vitamin C supplements, and antibiotics that treat you in the event that you have a lung infection. I think it just goes depending on how you are feeling. So my symptoms were not on the extreme, but they tried to manage them so that I am not feeling the effects as such. And yes, that's my COVID experience. And stay safe, guys. COVID is real.